hat to you. Is if you can have the talent to reach people like that, without even having any interest in the subject matter. And the reaction was really, really good. And that's when I really thought, Christ, we've got something really good here. And it's they understood the film, and they actually got it. And they got it because of things like that song. And I think that's kind of the aim. I would imagine, you'll know hell more than this video. I would imagine writing a song for a film was completely different than just writing a song.
And to be honest with you, I actually found it quicker because I know exactly what I'm looking for. You know what I mean? And it's kind of like, I suppose, the training I have for music workshops. Like I used to have to walk into a class. I walked into a class of 70 fucking secondary school girls one day, and they were like, "Right, break them into groups and write songs." I was like, "What in the fuck?" I was like, "Right, let's get 7 groups of 10, and you got to go around in the space of like literally from 9 o'clock in the morning to when they leave at 25 to 4. You got to have nearly seven songs written." And each up for performance, so you got to work fast. So in that respect, when they go, "What about a song about a night out?" You go, "Right, good song about a night out, easy peasy." Right? In that respect, that kind of training you can't buy that. You have to be that quick and that fast at it. But when somebody gives me an idea, say for instance, the World Wide Tim Parade, the Good Chai Foundation, Paul Lennon said, "Just make it catchy, something the kids can sing, and easy going." I was like, "Bingo, got it." Right? So when you said to me, Public Enemy, I was like, "Well, it's going to need some beats, it's going to need some rhythm." But the whole song, essentially, musically, isn't that. It's not complicated at all. It's a 4-chord trick, essentially. Actually, it's a 3-chord trick because it uses the same chord twice. But I knew because of listening to hip-hop kind of all my life and listening to that Public Enemy song, is like, music like that doesn't vary a lot. There's no big choruses in hip-hop songs. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And hip-hop has been a kind of part of my life for most of it. And what really spoke to me with the Public Enemy song, and which is why I exactly thought that would be the best song to try and kind of explain and amplify what it was I wanted for you, was the attitude. You know what I mean? And funnily enough, I had a discussion about this last week about Band-Aid and how if people say, "Oh, you should buy this song, didn't buy that song," blah blah blah. The thing about Band-Aid, with whether it was the first one or Band-Aid Theatre or whatever, everybody who's involved in it is a kind of safe, middle of the road artist.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's never been the attitude that pervades from hip hop, for the Boogie Down Bronx, for anything like that.
Yeah.
They just kind of say that, and it also adds into something that we've talked about privately and stuff as well about Ja. And Ja had an enormous influence on me as a working class guy who has kind of made it in his profession and really doesn't give a toss what anybody thinks, and had said to me, when you do something, whatever it is, what you create, just make sure that you get out there and you stick your chest out and you go for it. And it really, really spoke to me that, and that's kind of the attitude to me that hip hop artists have.
Yeah.
Whereas, yourself, they're coming for the streets, they're coming for the ghettos and all that kind of thing. And that was, I think, what you captured brilliantly in the song, lyrically, phenomenally.
Yeah. The lyrics, I knew when I got to the end of the lyrics, I had to shave off a lot of lines and stuff, but I knew the last line of the song of the second verse. I was like, fucking nailed that one. That was the one lyric I was like, going, yeah, and that took me about half an hour to write because it was backwards and forwards and changing words around, putting them here. But it's probably, my love of hip hop is probably the reason that I write lyrics the way that I do, because I try to make things rhyme as much as possible, right? Which kind of makes it more complex and probably a slower process, but it's way more fulfilling,
Yeah, and I mean, to me as well, is when you're listening to something for the first time or watching something for the first time that has a direct. I mean, it's like when I'm watching the film for the first time, you're kind of thinking, "Oh God, please be good," or please, And when I was like, my punch the air moment with the song that you wrote was when the first time I listened to it, and the line was, "As you plundered your way through the Asterisk Years," and I just thought, that's it. That is exactly what they did. And that's what's been captured. Do you know what I mean? This was, this was kind of reckless, sort of beyond belief in terms of what was going on. That kind of, resonated for 20 odd years in Scottish football, and was all about that. It was all about kind of. I mean, we're talking about, we're just two guys, who come for nothing, blah 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 blah, and we're talking about guys who had access to billions of pounds.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? And lawyers and judges and friendly bank managers and all that kind of thing. And I think that song and film and writing are ways that we can actually hit back at them.
Yeah, well, that's always been the way, hasn't it? It's always been the working class sort of tool, is art. I mean, you look at the murals in West Belfast for a start. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Things like that there have always been a weapon for the underclass. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. And I think as well, if you think about like, in the era we kind of grew up, if you think about, Thatcherism and everything that's went out of that, a lot of the good stuff that came out of that was there was great music, kind of fought back against it. There was great TV, like a Virazine Pen, Boys for the Black stuff that showed you what it was like on the other side of Thatcherism.
Yeah.
And that was something that I thought about a lot in terms of the film, that I could easily have just said to Jack, and we could have easily just made something that was kind of Celtic centric and just had all this kind of Celtic footage and blah, 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 blah. But I wanted to make sure that people understood that this was also about denying people opportunity for birth.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? In terms of conditioning us who come for nothing to never expect anything, and then conditioning them who go to public schools and all that kind of thing, the private schools, big band, to always feel entitled to stuff. And, that's something that I spoke about at college at length, and actually created a bit of debate with the lecturers, because they were kind of like, well, that's kind of what our job is as well, as a kind of community college, is to try and, we're fighting against these private schools all the time for university places and so on. And I think, again, that's why I kind of reached you, because I knew you being a hip-hop fan and coming from Belfast and then also living in America, that you would understand that we're kind of fucked for birth, but it doesn't necessarily mean we have to remain fucked. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you kind of have. Yeah, I think it's one of those things. I mean, when you're kind of born working class, real working class, the only thing you have to rely on is your reputation, your wits, and whatever it is you're good at.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whereas if you're born in like an elitist culture, like in high society, you don't really got to count on yourself at all. You know what I mean? Because you can fuck up your life and somebody will swoop in and rescue you.
Oh yeah, I've said it often, and it doesn't just apply to the Edinburgh establishment. It applies to all these kind of people. Is in these environments you feel up the way.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? There was a guy. I remember reading this guy who was Barbara Streisand's hairdresser, and then the next thing he was given the rights to direct a Superman movie.
What?
And I just think, how do you but again, it's, these opportunities, they just keep giving and giving and giving, and whereas guys like us, are constantly denied, and you have to kind of create them yourself, and that's kind of, again, coming for the hip hop angle of, they were born out of sort of, one of the things, to go back to Thatcherism, one of the things that she did inadvertently was allowed people who were who wanted to be musicians to sign on the dole. You know what I mean? And so they would go out and so on, and that's kind of, we've tried to hit back at the Edinburgh establishment, Murray, etc., with our art, if you like. You know what I mean? And I think that's what you've done phenomenally.
Well, what I want to ask as well in that respect is, when I was writing the song, I was conscious. I do a thing that I've done loads with loads of kids. Like, if you're going to write a song about, I've said to kids years ago in loads of workshops, if you're going to write a song about love, right, try not to include the words love, baby, yours, mine. Take out all the cliche words, or anything that you think should be in there, and write around the subject, right? I've done that loads of times. It's a great wee exercise. It tests your brain, and it retests the kind of words you know and how you think about something. And I did that when I was writing the Asterisk Years. I wrote down the words I didn't want to include, which would be Celtic, Rangers, Sevco, any of that sort of shit. You know what I mean? I would take all that stuff out, because I didn't want it to be that obvious. I wanted to make a point. I don't want it to be part of the film, but you kind of want the film to stand alone by itself, you know?
Yeah, and that to me is the best kind of art, is when you can just say things without actually saying it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I remember reading, one of the things that always sticks to me, Joe, in that kind of aspect, is when Brendan Behan came back to Dublin after being in Boston for 3 years in Liverpool, after being caught as a young boy with the Jellic Night and things like that. And the guy looked at his papers and he went, "Oh, Brendan Behan." And he said, "Yeah." And he said, "It must be good to be free." And Brendan Behan said, "Yeah, it must." And to me, that kind of thing that's how you kind of fight back. And I've always been inspired by people who come for nothing and end up kind of changing the world. Do you know what I mean? Or making their imprint on the world without having the kind of privilege and all that kind of thing bucking them up. And so, but certainly in terms of the song, I mean, the reaction to the song has been huge, especially when I think it's quite a difficult environment for people because, first of all, if they've never seen the film, they're not expecting to hear the song.
No.
And then it comes on at the end, and the people are in that moment where they're thinking, Jesus Christ, what have I just seen? And what was this? And what was that? And blah, 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 and all that kind of thing. And I think it's one of the things where it just fits like a glove within the film. And that's due to yourself and Ja being able to marry that. He put the imagery to the song, and I think it was just fantastic. And hopefully people will go out and buy the thing.
Hopefully. Well, we're going to get the details towards the end here. We're getting towards the end. One thing I wanted to ask you as well was, see when you mentioned about the people seeing it in college and people who aren't into football, have people responded to it like on a sort of societal level in terms of like going, oh fuck, I didn't realize this. The people that didn't realize there was like a classism going on around, Scottish society. Was there anybody who was young maybe who's watching this going, fuck, I didn't know this?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing that people who probably aren't as dialed into the subject matter as people like us are, that they bring out the film is the stuff about the judges and things like that. And you can see them particularly if they come from Edinburgh. And there's a few guys from Edinburgh at the Carl Luke show, and they were like this. They were looking at us going, hold on a minute here. I know these areas. And I know these where he's talking about here. I didn't really understand that. I didn't really believe. And it starts to sink into them. And then bit by bit, they start to piece it together. Because I've always said, one of the questions I got asked about was about the banks. And it said, you said that, the global financial crisis effectively killed Scotland's two biggest banks. I mean, what does that mean? And I said, it did. I said, it killed basically that was it. You know what I mean? They couldn't live within their own bubble. And I actually said, the addendum to that is that I have no doubt in my mind whatsoever that had the banks survived and there hadn't been a global financial crisis, there would now be an independent Scotland without any shadow of a doubt.
Yeah.
But it would have been run by those fuckers.
Yeah. Well, the rug was pulled from underneath them before they could even start.
Exactly.
So we're getting on towards the end here. We're going to just plug the song. It's going to be up on iTunes right now. iTunes. Some people don't use iTunes, right? iTunes, if you have an iPhone, you can get it on the iTunes store. I think it's going to be about 99 cents, but you can just check that. It may depend on where you are, because iTunes just do their own thing. You just send them your song, and they just take your money, and then they're going to tell you what you've made in 3 months' time. That's how it works. They don't really say, okay, you got to wait 3 months. So you just got to wait to see how many you sell. But initially, the push has got to be, a big one, right? That's what we're trying to do here with this mini podcast. Basically, it's going to be up on iTunes. It's going to be on Amazon. I think it's like an Amazon Play thing, Amazon Music Store. You can buy music on Amazon, right? I don't know how much they're going to charge, but that will all be included in a blog I'm writing, and it's going to be included in the notes of this podcast, right? So, but if you don't use iTunes, you don't use Amazon, you don't use any of that stuff, there is a way to send money, and we'll just put it at a euro or a pound. Put it at what do you think, Paul?
Yeah, whatever, a pound, whatever.
Right, a pound for the song, right? A pound or a euro, depends on where you are. A pound or a euro, right? Basically, and if you use PayPal, right? Or if you don't have iTunes or any access to any of that stuff, and use PayPal and you want to get the song, you can send a pound. I think if you do friends and family, so you can pick up like a 5p charge, whatever it is, to homeboys67@gmail.com, right? Now, what happens then is we get the money, we get your email address, and we'll just email you the song, right? To see if you want it, or and you can't get on the iTunes, you're not savvy in that respect, or even somebody who's buy it for you, I don't know. But so basically, all the money that's raised through this song, and I hope it is quite a bit, like not necessarily for like selfish reasons, but I think the profile of the film is big enough now. I think dare I say it, the profile of the show is big enough now to get a decent response from people who want to buy the song. And listen, people seem to like the song. I like the song. I've listened to it a couple of times. It's rare for me. I listen to it myself, and it's also a bit of an egomaniacal thing to do, lie in bed listening to yourself at night.
Well, I know what you mean, Joe, but to me, that's the only way you get better. You know what I mean? It's like listening to podcasts and things like that. It's like, if you're never going to look at the stuff you do, then you're never going to get any better at it. You know what I mean? And you keep evolving with it. And so, no, I think you should be immensely proud of it. And of course, I mean, when you can make a real impact with this song, we get it out there, who knows where it could end up, with potentially social media these days and the Celtic family, this could go viral. And also, as we've said at the right at the